Today we're talking about possibly the most overlooked aspect of your music career that can help you grow and get you to the next level and just completely explode. And it's actually mind-blowing because it's not so much the creative part. It's not writing a better song. It's not recording with better instruments or better mics. It's not doing the right collaboration. It's not even the right marketing scheme. It's a bit of science. It's the science of analytics. And as somebody that's been making content and music for many, many, many years, analytics can be your best friend if used properly. And take this with a grain of salt, because you can take analytics too far where you lose the heart behind what you're doing and it becomes completely analytically driven. But I'm saying how you can incorporate analytics. Now, if you're creative, you might be like, this is really boring, I don't really care, but stick around. Trust me, it can be a little heady, it can be a little nerdy, brainy, but trust me, if you start to get analytics and just even the simplest understanding of them, it can completely change your career. Now, let's talk about it. What is an analytic? Analytics are the behind the scenes of what's going on. They're the reports. It's essentially your report card. You release a song or an album or a slew of songs, and that is, the analytics are telling you how well they performed, where people are listening, what time people are listening, like what platforms. For example, I'll just give you a couple examples. Like biggest analytics could be like what song is doing really well at the moment, where it's doing really well, what meaning what part of the country, what part of the world, how often it's being streamed, in the sense of like on what platforms it's being streamed on, or what even just time of day, which can be useful in certain areas. That's more so for like when you're posting and stuff like that. But what if you're on any playlists and what the names of the playlists are, because that plays a really big factor into like how people are resonating with your music, because of how they're titling the playlists. And whether or not, like, for example, even marketing is working. For example, if you're trying to market, if you're a US-based musician and you're trying to market to the UK, and all of a sudden you're noticing that you're having a spike in Mexico, but not the UK, well, like, maybe your marketing's not doing what you're intending, but maybe something else is happening. It's essentially your report card, and understanding your report card and how to read your report card. I highly recommend you do it. Now, how do you do it? There's a bunch of different ways. There's Spotify has its own app called the Spotify for Artists. Apple Music has the Apple Music Analytics app. I think it's also called Apple Music for Analytics. But what I find is one of the easiest ways, rather than having all these different apps and going to check in, is doing it through a distributor. I personally release my music through Distrokid, and you can do it through your distributor. Let me just show you a quick example. I'll pull it up for you. Let's change this so you can see my screen. This has all the analytics that Spotify and Apple Music would have. It shows you how you're being searched, if you're being on playlists, if you're being a part of a collection, if it's a part of radio, if it's being online, or if it's all these other things. What country people are listening in, based on a map. There's all these analytics. If they're listening on tablet, if they're listening on their iPhones, what time of day, what month, and all these different analytics to how people are listening. You have it right there, and you can start to just really dive deep into what people are doing. And then, so for example, I like looking at Distrokid right off the bat, because that gives you like the broad overview of how often you're being streamed, where you're being streamed, what songs are being streamed. And then if I really want to go nitpicky, then I'll go into, like, for example, Spotify for Artists, because then they have a little bit more based on simply their platform. When and what's it called? Apple has specifics based on their platform, and it's really interesting also to see how it changes. I mean, you could change it on DistroKid as well, but like, for example, what I just showed you with Spotify. You can also do Apple Music, and what's cool about DistroKid is it also tells you like your sales, where Spotify won't show you the sales, and I don't recall if Apple Music actually shows you the sales, but this one has iTunes and Amazon sales. So if you're selling music as well and people are actually buying your tracks, that's really helpful to know. But what do you do with that information? So, for example, here's actual practical tips as to what you can do with that information. Okay, you notice Spotify showing you that you're growing in Brazil and you're getting a bunch of different streams in Brazil. Well, consider releasing a Portuguese lyric version, right? Or if you're a touring artist, obviously consider that. You can help build your tour off of this information. But even on a smaller scale, consider releasing a lyric version in that language. You popping off in Mexico, consider a collaboration with a Mexican artist or a Latin artist, or covering a Spanish song, or taking your song and doing a Spanish version of it. I had a song do really, really well. It was starting to do well in like the Latin areas. It wasn't a Latin song; it just happened to be doing well. So I speak Spanish. I did a Spanish version of it. And like, or maybe you could do collaboration where like you keep your original version and you have a Spanish artist on, and they sing a Spanish version, like a Spanish section. For example, let's go another one. If, for example, TikTok causes a spike in streams, you can see what kind of content is really working for you, that either you're posting or other people are posting, and if maybe you can reach out to influencers to try to do more of it. If a playlist is driving plays, then you could try to pitch more similar songs to similar curators and try to push that playlist and grow the playlist area. So this information is huge. When you look at this, it's not just guessing what does well and how, why, and where. No, you use the analytics. I use them in Distrokid. You can also use them in Spotify for artists and Apple Music for artists. It's just simpler because you can also see like per song and stuff. But like when I like in it's all in one place for Distrokid. You have to go to the separate places and have the different apps and whatever. It can become cumbersome with the other way around. But that being said, I highly recommend it. Look into it. If you are not using your analytics to advance your music career, you are absolutely missing out. So if you haven't started yet, definitely start with analytics.